Among all the Latin America countries, Brazil is so far the most diverse one. Brazilians usually have almost all the phenotypes, being very hard to fit them into a specific stereotype. In fact, everyone can be a Brazilian, from the Asian to African. That diversity is not only applied on appearance, but also on cultural facts. Because of its multinational heritage, Brazil has diversity and the multiculturalism very present in everyday life, which perhaps would make the country one of the top destinations for refugees in the world. Currently, Brazil has accepted far more Syrian refugees than any other country in Latin America, according to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. But it's important to highlight that while Brazil has 8,000 refugees, Germany alone has more than 200,000. On one hand, Brazil is considered culturally open, but on the other hand, the bureaucratic structure makes it not very easy for foreigners to live there. However, despite all the difficulties, proportionally, the number of refugees practically tripled from 2012 to 2013, basically as a consequence of external pressure placed by international NGOs and human rights agencies. Recently, the Brazilian government announced a plan to provide special humanitarian visas for Syrian nations who are looking for a place to live. It might sound controversial for Brazil to receive so many refugees, since it's a country with insurmountable internal issues to worry about. Despite the controversial bias, it is more than natural for the Brazilian government to assume more international responsibility, since the country is looking forward to become a member of the United Nations Security Council and also participating toward global governance. The refugees issue in Brazil is very interesting to analyze, since beyond the foreign refugees, there are also what we call internal refugees. People who live in a kind of ghetto called favelas, facing the violence caused by the drug trafficking and corruption. Usually come from the poorest part of the countryside, those people represent an army of landless citizens who fight for access to land. According to some scholars, Brazil has failed to manage the internal displacement. The reasons behind the displacement basically are violence, natural disaster, and poverty. But independent of that, the government measurements are largely aimed to help the victims, rather than work on manners to avoid the displacement to occur. Overall, the government plays an important role towards the international refugees issue. However, there are still many challenges to be accomplished. Besides the bureaucratic help, the Brazilian government should deposit more effort in support for third parties who also play an important role in the issue, like NGOs, for example. Reducing the refugees exclusion and encouraging the involvement of them in the private sector are the biggest assets to Brazil. With that, the country can justify its status as a country of diversity.